Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Passion Podcast 2.0. This is Sandeep Bose, motivation speaker and communication trainer. This time, bringing you an exciting episode once again on a Sunday afternoon. We have a special guest joining us all the way from Israel. Her name is Dr. Gila Aloni. Mrs. Aloni is a keynote speaker, founder of Shatnez Method, also the author of the book Omen and Power in the Legend of Good Omen, and also she has studied in different universities around the world, starting with Tel Aviv University, Sorbonne in Europe, Harvard, New York, and Columbia University. It's a great honor and privilege for me to introduce to you Dr. Gila Aloni. Hello, ma'am. How are you doing?
I'm very well. How are you doing in India?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for asking. And how's everything back home?
Um, it's hot. Is it hot in Kolkata?
Actually, it's raining. It's raining cats and dogs since the morning, so it's cloudy
Oh,
as well.
really?
Yes, it is. So, how are you doing? How's everything?
Everything is well. Um,
Great, great. So, first of all, ma'am, I would like to thank you for taking time out for this podcast. And I know how busy you are, but also you have taken time out from your busy schedule, and you're here today at episode number 14 of Passion Podcast. So, I really would like to share my gratitude with you. Thank you so much. And I've already introduced you with my audience, and it's a great honor to have you in the podcast. So I'd like to ask you one question in the beginning. That so you have done many certifications from different universities also. So what do you think? What's your biggest achievement so far, as far as the academics is concerned?
well, I think that the answer to your question is actually in the question itself. I have done, I've studied in the Middle East, um, I've studied in Europe and
Right.
in US. And the biggest achievement is to actually be able to take skills, language and culture, in addition to the education itself, from all of these places.
Right.
So it's provided me with an array of uh, tools, experiences, life experiences that otherwise just studying in one place, I would not have had it. I think that's the biggest achievement, to be able to do a transfer of skills from one place to another, from one language to another. You know,
So you can say it's like a global exposure you got while studying.
I think that that's exactly what I created for myself from an early age, from the age of 20 when I first started studying, and to begin with, to start medieval English literature and do it in Paris at the Sorbonne. Of course, there is an academic reason, because I
Okay.
specialized in an author that lived spent some time in France and was the first one to translate from French to Middle English. But to be able to do that and move from language to language was an achievement and a privilege.
Right. So you are a keynote speaker, you're a global speaker, you have spoken on many international events as well. So
Right.
what is your definition of teaching or training?
Um, I think that teaching um, is the ability, a good teacher is ability to ask questions that invite the audience to think and to think critically. So a good teacher asks questions that provoke thinking, that invites the audience, the students, to participate in a dialogue. A good teacher is someone who is able, through the question, to create uh, curiosity
Right.
and to bring from within. We're all born curious. Some people lose it at one point. So it's the ability to bring back this or to tap into the curiosity and this desire, the love for learning.
Exactly. I mean, you mentioned curiosity is very important, and
Yes.
with age, we sometimes we lose that, and it's very important to be curious. Very good point. Okay, so I'd like you to talk about. So you have taken many initiatives. You have wrote a book. Also, you are the founder of the Shatnez method as well, and you are working extensively in the field of diversity, inclusion, and belonging. And also, you spoke a lot about equality. So I would like to ask you about this: that why you decided to work on this field, and what is your source of inspiration, motivation, if you can share with our audience.
The motivation for getting into this field actually relates to the question of why I agreed to do this interview with you in India, because the
Right.
motivation is related to India, in fact.
Okay.
So I can tell you a little story.
Sure.
Um, I grew up in Israel, and when I was 5 years old, and I grew up in a neighborhood where most of the people who were living in that neighborhood came from, after the Holocaust, they came from Europe.
Okay.
That means that there were a lot of the kids in my kindergarten were, not a lot, but some were blonde, blue eyes, and we had this queen of the class. She was gorgeous, blue eyes, blonde. I was a tomboy. I liked to play with the boys. I was curious. I liked to climb on trees. I wasn't the typical girl. Um, and one day I go to kindergarten, and this girl starts calling me Kushi.
Okay.
Now, don't say anything because I know you know what it means.
Right.
Um, but she called me Kushi. And
Okay.
Kushi in Hebrew means the N word. And then all the kids at school started in the kindergarten saying Kushi, Kushi, the N word, um, which, of course, for a 5-year-old girl, the whole self esteem, the whole confidence is impacted.
Right.
And I didn't say anything at home. I didn't say anything to my parents. And then a few days later, this girl invited me over, and her it was a rainy day, maybe like right now in Calcutta.
Right. Yeah.
Um, I put on a coat. I remember walking across the street to get to her house. I got inside and I said hello to her mother, and I said hello to her father. I'm not going to mention words, the surnames. And I got into her room, and I remember getting into the room, looking at the side, and because it was so cold, there, there was an electronic heater. It looks like a
Okay.
cordial,
Yeah.
the gray color. And she
Yeah.
was standing there, and she said to me, "Today, I'm going to burn you." And she was about to push me.
Okay.
So maybe it's not the story you want to hear on a Sunday. Of course, I was a little bit shocked. We all know kids can be mean. When I say it, I can't even believe that it happened. Well, I asked to go home. All I remember is I was sitting on the bed and then I asked to go home. And I went home, and of course, this experience stayed with me for many years. This idea of not worthy enough, or not pretty enough, or not the right color. Interesting, because people don't know that actually it exists in Ashkenaz and Sephardic Jews. I mean, some people do, especially Mizrahi Jews.
Right.
Fast forward, um, of course. I had to prove myself that I'm worthy. And I was also a very curious girl. So all the degrees, summa cum laude, finishing with excellence. Comes the time in which, in 2018, while I'm teaching, I moved from Paris to New York, and then I moved to Miami, and I was teaching, and I come out and I see a student that I've never seen before. And I said, "Oh, hello, I've never seen you before. Where are you from?" And she said, uh, "I'm from India." I said, "Oh, how nice to meet you." When in my 20s, I was traveling all over India. I was in New Delhi and Agra, Varanasi, and even Calcutta.
Yeah, you mentioned
And
that.
then I asked her, "What's your name?" And you know what she said?
Kushi.
Kushi. And I
You
was
know,
shocked.
yeah,
So
Dr.
I
Eloni, do
have
you
a
know
question.
that what is
Well,
the
I have
meaning
a
of this
question
word,
to you.
Kushi?
I have a question to you.
Yeah,
I
tell me.
ask you what I ask her. What does Kushi mean in
Yeah,
Hindi?
so that's what I was trying to tell you, that Kushi means happiness.
So she said that to me. It was in 2018, happiness. And I said to her, "Nice to meet you. My name is Gila." And in Hebrew, Gila means happiness.
Okay,
So it was like a closure. Because when they called me Kushi, maybe they called me happiness in a different language.
that's right.
So this incident was a closure, karma, you want to call it. But even when I was traveling in India, I've never met anybody whose name of Kushi, nor did I know. So this is
Okay.
the reason why I agreed to this interview, because I thought the universe is calling. It's coming from India. I'm going to say, "Hello, I'm here."
I'm really glad that you're doing it, and thank you so much once again.
And that's the origin of my interest in equality, right from a very, very early age, of empathy, of walking in somebody else's shoes. Aside from the fact that I have a very impressive collection of shoes because I like shoes, but it's the idea um, of really being able to um, be in someone else's shoes and know what they feel. And I think I think um, I think it started from there. I think from personal experience.
You talked about India, so I'd like to ask you one question: that what is your perception about India, and what are the things you liked about India, or maybe it will stay with you forever, like you really learned something or gathered something from your memories.
So I want to tell you, and I want to preface this by telling you that I traveled really all over the world. And with the years, once I had family, I always kept on traveling, even by myself. I'm talking about all over Europe, in the Middle East, I'm talking neighboring countries. I'm talking in the US when I gave lectures in universities. And then I started going from Miami. I traveled to Latin America. I went to Guatemala. I went to Peru, Mexico, and then all the Caribbean, some Barts, San Martin. Uh, I've traveled all of these places.
Okay.
But India is one of my favorite places in the world, other than Paris. Paris is number one, has been and always is. And what I liked about India is life attitude. It seemed to me that no matter how much um, poverty there is, and I remember seeing a lot of it in the streets because I like to walk and travel with public
Different
transportation.
places.
Still today, yes, yes. I don't like to travel in a bubble. I like to travel when I'm part of the culture, whether
Mm,
with rickshaws or trains or
got it.
and and I felt that people treat poverty in a different way that they treat it elsewhere in the world. Um, and there is a certain happiness I, I like their sense of humor. I like your sense of humor. You have, from my experience, I have seen a great sense of humor. I remember going to the movies and everybody was talking during the movies. I don't know if it's the same now. I remember going to the zoo, going to a circus, and the
Okay.
circus was such an experience. So that's
Circus in Kolkata or some other state city?
my traveling. Was, I said it earlier. I traveled all over India. I traveled from New Delhi by myself in my 20s
No, the
down to
circus.
Calcutta.
The circus.
Oh, the
Circus.
circus. Um, to be honest, I don't remember it was Calcutta or not. I really
Oh,
don't know, remember the city.
okay.
I don't know.
Yeah. So I would like to, since I have already mentioned that you are into many things right now, so I would like you to talk about your initiatives that which you have taken, and your current projects which you are working on, and which one is very close to your heart, if you can mention it with the audience.
Um, all the initiatives that relate to diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging um, are close to my heart. Um, and um, this is part of the Shatnez method that I created, which I will talk to you about it later, if you will.
Sure.
Um, but it turns out that everything that I've done led to this because even my first book was, which was following up my dissertation and my PhD at the Sorbonne, and was
Right.
published in French as a book. I mean, not as a book, I wrote that book later,
Right.
which is called Power and Authority in the Legend of Good Women. Even that book was the beginning of my interest in diversity that was focusing on women.
Right.
And then I was, I studied also journalism and I worked as a journalist in
Okay.
Paris and freelancing about art. And
Right.
so, um, and also when I moved to the US, and I also always was interested in in diverse cultures. I was
Right.
also always multicultural. So the closest one is diversity, equity, and inclusion, and my expertise in this field. Even before I did this certificate that I earned at Harvard. And you should
Right.
maybe understand that I was always an observer because I
Right.
was not French, but I lived in Paris looking at the culture as an outsider, but part of it. I lived like a Parisian for 10
Right.
years. And then in America, I'm not American. I am now, but I wasn't originally. I wasn't born there. So, in fact, I switched um, places. And I almost was a self entrepreneur. I reinvented myself. And it allowed me to see a diversity of people
Right.
um, um, that in these places they actually included me and they opened their homes and hearts and universities. And that was a
Right.
fabulous experience. So, to answer your question, anything that is related that I'm doing now with diversity, equity, and inclusion and belonging
Right.
is something that is dear to my heart. And the idea of belonging with all the refugees and the question of home and what is home in the 21st century. What is global citizen? What does it mean when you're a global citizen? What's your place? That's belonging. And in fact, place also related to the idea of time. You know, when I travel, I always wonder when somebody asks me what time is it, I'm thinking to my, I remember always thinking, do they mean what time is it from the place we left or the place we're going to?
Right.
So this question of time and place is always it's something that always preoccupied me.
Okay.
And maybe because I was born not in the right place and not in the right time. I was not supposed to be born at the beginning of the 8 months of pregnancy, but I did. And my parents
Right.
were traveling to another city, um, and Uh, I was born there, so not in the
Right,
right time, not in the right place. So,
right, right.
but that's a little anecdote.
Okay, great, great. So, while doing research about you, I got to know many things about you, and now you are in a leadership position. You're the founder, of course, of the Shatnez method, and you're also you were a chairperson and associate professor of Lean University.
Excuse me, it's my tea. Yes, I was.
Okay, okay, and also you founded the college Easy Doctor as well. So,
Yes, the
and
college
also
essay
now,
doctor. The college essay doctor. Um, well, throughout the years, um, I've acquired tools in writing. To begin with, I specialized in the Middle Ages and the beginning of rhetoric of at university as part of education, because the first university was in Bologna. I was actually there 2 weeks ago. Um, I studied in depth the origin of rhetoric and the theories of rhetoric and the use of rhetoric. And then I studied journalism and I worked as a journalist. I was published as a journalist. And later, with a PhD in English literature um, and as a researcher, I published over 15 articles, some of which are in renowned peer reviewed journals that are um, located at Harvard and Princeton. So, um, use of rhetoric and writing has always been a skill of mine. And the college essay doctor, I actually help people from all over the world write essays
okay.
that um, help them get into universities. In the last 12 years, I worked in a preparatory school in Miami. And one of the things that I taught my students is writing. Um, and that was a great privilege and joy. It brought me a lot of happiness to work with them and show them that if I did it, they can do it. And they can. So that's the college essay doctor.
So, since you are the founder of many initiatives, I feel that if you are a visionary, then you can see the future and you think about the future, you think about the people, you think about a complex problem to solve. And that's when you create something, you build something. And right now, you're in a leadership position. We are in a
Excuse me,
world,
I cannot hear you. I'm sorry.
yeah,
What did you say?
right now, right now you're in a leadership position with your
Uh-huh.
organization, right? And we are living in a world we see great leaders from Elon Musk to Bill Gates, Steve Jobs. There are great leaders, right? What is your definition of leadership? What is leadership according to you?
Well, I think that when you speak about leadership, I think that it depends on which field. There is leaders in politics. There are leaders in education, and there are leaders in technology and science. There are different areas, but for all of them, I think the ability to um, have courage. In Yiddish, it's called chutzpah. I don't know if you've heard this word. Uh, is the ability to be courageous and not to be too worried about.
The consequences.
No, you should be worried, in my opinion, about the consequences, but not to worry so much about other people's opinions because others cannot see what you already see. If
Yes.
you have an idea in your mind,
Mm.
if you have an idea in your mind, then a leader can lead their audience or their people with that vision. So a leader, in my opinion, should be a hard worker, not to be afraid of work.
Okay.
Um, I think a leader. in all areas should have ethics, in my opinion. Should also be empathetic, because leadership, in my opinion, is the way you, after you have a vision and you see something,
Mm.
is to bring people with you to go in that direction. In fact,
Right.
when you think about, every teacher is a leader. When you go into the classroom, you need to lead the entire class and create a
Yeah.
bond with them. So I think a good leader helps the students, for example, we're talking about education, progress, and
Yeah.
be prosperous. I think a good leader is someone who creates prosperity and 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 networking and connections, and understand that competition is only with yourself. It's not about pushing the other one with an elbow, but working together. And I think a good leader sh- should lead with self
Self-esteem.
example. Excuse me.
Self-esteem.
No, self example.
Self-example. Okay. Lead by
Example.
example. Okay.
Lead by example. Now, obviously, there should be some charisma,
Mhm.
right? When you think about leaders, from men and women, and think about
Yeah.
Indira Gandhi. Think about Indira Gandhi. Think
Indra
about those.
Nui. Indra
Excuse me.
Nui. Indra Nui. She was
The
the
prime, the Prime Minister of India.
no. I'm talking about Indra Nui. She was the CEO of PepsiCo for 18
I
years.
didn't hear you well. Sorry.
I am
Yes,
talking.
yes, yes, yes.
Hmm. Yeah.
That's a lot of courage, and to listen to your heart, and to keep on going without being afraid of failure. And even if you fail, you need to keep on and bring the people you work with you to your vision.
Yes.
But it has to come from within them. You cannot. It has to come from within them.
Right. So,
I don't know if I answered your question, but
you answered it perfectly. I mean, you have bring so many insights which are so valuable for the audience as well. And I would like to add one more point. I think
I'm
you will
actually
agree.
curious. What do you think is the most valuable one? Now I'm going to be the interviewer, but I'm
Yeah,
curious. What are these
yeah.
points? What
So
do you think is the most important?
definitely, I was just about to tell you that can we add discipline also in this criteria?
Sure, I said hard work. And
Hard
when
work.
I
You
mean
meant
hard work is discipline. Hard work.
right.
I think it's the first thing I said. That it's
Mhm.
really important to be a hard worker, not to be afraid of hard work. And that's what I mean with self example. I
Yeah. So
think
if
that sometimes actions are louder than words. Even though I am a woman of words, but I think actions are louder than the words.
if you ask me, I'll say that courage goes number one. You have to be courageous as a leader, and then
Yeah.
lead by example and empathetic. So for me, these three are very important.
So I'm glad that we agree.
Yes. Okay. So now I want you to talk about something which is very close to your heart, and you were working for many years doing that, which is the Shatnez method. So I'd
Right.
like you to talk more about it and what is this thing and how you're helping many people around the globe with this method.
So, first of all, there is a very short definition of it and an explanation in my LinkedIn page if
Right.
people are interested in looking.
Sure.
But since you asked, I will explain to you
Mhm.
what's the origin.
Yeah.
Um, so, the purpose of this method, the Shatnez method,
Mhm.
which is basically a method composed of seven steps according to the letters of this word Shatnez.
Okay.
The purpose of this method is to help um, individuals, executives, and companies, help them understand um, where there is I would say, a limiting belief system, or where there is a blockage.
Okay.
And through this method, it helps them uh, have a new perspective that
Mm.
helps them move forward and achieve their highest potential
Right.
as individuals and in relationships. In fact, the word Shatnez um, goes back to an ancient law
Right.
that does not allow the mixing of two textures,
Okay.
um, linen and silk. And when you
Okay.
think about it, when you combine linen with silk, there is a kind of like, if you put it next to each other, it kind of creates like, I would say, like, like static electricity. You could
Okay.
see if you have a shirt of linen and you
Okay.
are silk on it, or the opposite actually. Um, you can see the little threads of the linen on the silk shirt, right?
Right. Right.
The- So the idea is that when there is a collaboration, where there is of two elements, each one of them should keep their original texture, whether you're linen, metaphorically speaking,
Okay.
or
Okay.
silk. In other words, no longer talking about a melting pot, but the
Right.
idea of identifying your individual texture. And I'm talking about textures and the relationship between text and textures, because in this system and the method, I use a variety of theories and text brought together in order to provoke a process. Um, and I can talk to you a little bit about the method of the Shatnez that involves both the external and actually it's fascinating to see the relationship between the way brand people brand themselves, the outfit you wear, like I'm wearing white
Right.
now,
Right.
uh, or the way a company brands itself, the clothes, the outfits, and the connection between outfits and clothes and performance, outstanding performance, paying attention to the relationship between these two. So that's why the idea um, of the word Shatnez is meaningful
Right.
because it includes also branding, self branding. Uh, and I will talk to you briefly, if you want, about the seven steps. So,
Yes. Please. Please do that.
um, so throughout the years, I was trying to decode um, in everything that I have studied and everything that I've read in those 10 different diplomas and degrees altogether that I acquired from all the places I've studied,
Yeah.
including the recent NLP studies that I did, neuro linguistic programming.
Yeah.
And I thought that I found a system that involves over 7 steps. The first one, the most important thing, which starts with S, is style and strategic planning. When I talk about style, I mean not just the way you look, but your style should be a happy one. Maybe it's a different way in which others would say play, but I think the most important thing is to do things from a place of happiness. I'm going back to the word kushi in Hindu or Gila in Hebrew. But the most important thing, when I was living in Paris, I was happy every day to go to the university. I was happy to go down and drink coffee in this small cafe and looking at the people and walking in the streets. And then going into the library, that the environment made me happy. And I did all of my studies with joy. I didn't even feel that I'm working. So the
Right.
most important thing is style. The style should be with joy and happiness and playful and And also, you have to have a strategic planning. You cannot go to any endeavor in life without having a plan, strategic plan. So that's the S. The second one, I train people to um, have
Okay.
chutzpah, which is with age,
Right.
is um, an old, an ancient word in Yiddish that stands for audacity. Are you there? Because suddenly there is quiet.
Yeah, I am here. Just kidding.
Um, Audacity, courage,
Right.
lion heart, which means um, with courage and chutzpah, um,
Right.
even if you fail, you see it as another step rather than anything else.
So A
The next,
stands for audacity. Right.
so it's the chutzpah. The word chutzpah means audacity and courage.
Okay. Okay.
Audacity.
Okay.
Okay, and then the next letter of Shatnez is A. You can imagine the SHA, Sha'at.
Yes. Yes.
Authenticity, no matter what you do, I believe that it's important to understand your individual texture. As I said before, are you silk or are you? You can change. One day you can be this, and one can be that.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think that the idea is to. Um, I think the idea is to keep your authenticity and loyalty to who you are.
Okay.
Um, T, Sha'at. T stands for tenacity.
Okay.
N stands for networking. I
Okay.
talk about four circles of networking
Right.
uh, that are important, and um, uh, I have various tools and exercises how to enhance the networking.
Okay.
Uh, um, by the way, the fourth circle of networking, there is, your closest circle, which is your friends and family, and there is the second one that is your career
Okay.
and the people you work with. Um, Actually, it goes like this: family first, that's the first, then your friends, and then your career. And can you guess what's the fourth one in networking? What's the most important one? I said three. What do you think is the fourth? I'm just curious. See, I'm a trainer by heart, and I like to, even though I'm being interviewed, I like to have a conversation. So I mentioned in the networking, I said that it's important to have your closest circle as support system, which is your
Yeah.
family, and
Right.
then your friends, and then the circle of work. What's the fourth in your opinion? I'm asking you. What do you think it would be?
Maybe self, yourself.
That's a good one. Um, that's a good one. Um, what I talk about when I talk about the fourth circle is what I'm doing now is meet people you've never met before, learn from, make new
Strangers.
connections,
Okay.
people that you've met, others.
Okay.
And so that's N, Sha'at, then E for empathy. I talk about empathy and the importance of empathy. There is a really important book by Viktor Frankl
Okay.
that is the foundation of all of my ideas about empathy. And the last one, T, is Sha'at. Sorry, Sha'at,
Z.
Z,
Z.
sorry.
Z.
Yes, Z is for zealous. Zealous is a word that goes back to the 14th century, the Middle Ages, and the idea of zealous is almost like a religious, to be almost like a religiously fanatic. Maybe you call it discipline, but you have to be zealous when you go into any new endeavor. And um, there are ways to develop it.
It does it mean enthusiastic?
Zealous is more. Um, it's more like religious fanaticism almost. Like you've got to be into it. And of course, the best way to do things is, even when you're fanatic about something, is to do it with happiness. And I started with happiness.
Passion, with passion. Yeah.
I think all of this together create passion, because when you have empathy, when you do things with playfulness and with style, I think it brings joy and success. So this is the method that I developed based on over 25 years of experience around the world, in the Middle East, in Europe, and in the US.
Right. Amazing. So we are almost at the end of the podcast, but
Sure.
I would like to talk about the book which you have wrote, which is "The Woman and Power in the Legend of Good Woman." So, what is
Right.
this book is all about? And I can see behind you there's a bookshelf. So you are an avid reader. Even I am trying to become one, But so I would like you to talk about this book, and I would also like you to talk about your favorite books over the years. Like, if you can point out some books like that inspired you a lot, or it changed your perception. Yeah.
Mhm. So, The Legend of Good Women, let's go back a little bit. Um, the idea of the book is perspective. Our the way we look at women today
Right.
um, goes back to perspective and books that were written about women and the perception of women from the story in the Old Testament. For example, is Eve. For one
Right.
instance, so Eve is portrayed in the Old Testament as temptress and as seductive and as not trustworthy. And of course, if you read the stories about Eve, you begin to have such images of women are not trustworthy, right? So, and that's not the only example. And over the years, because of the dominant ideology, which is masculine, and books were written by men initially,
Right.
a lot of them, um, there was a certain perception of women. But that was not always the case. And in fact, the man that is called the father of English literature, because he was the first one to write in Middle English, and not, is Geoffrey Chaucer. And Chaucer, who lived in the 14th century, took all the stories of the most evil women in history, in mythology, Greek mythology, such as Medea,
Right.
and he put them together in one book.
Okay.
Um, Medea did the thing that's another perception of women. She did the one thing that goes against the one thing that goes against any instinct, because uh, uh, Jason betrayed her. She did the unthinkable, which I'll go
Okay.
back to it in a minute, what she
Okay.
did. So Chaucer took all of those women, including Cleopatra and Medea, and he rewrote the stories, and he made them
Yeah.
into good women. So, for
Right.
example, in the story of Medea is very, very briefly is when Jason comes to look for the golden fleece, and she promises that she will help him because she was in love with him.
Right.
She says that she would do it if he marries her. Um, she betrays her father there. It's true,
Okay.
and she helps him with the golden fleece. And when he comes out after not being devoured by the Minotaur, like everybody else,
Yeah.
he marries her and they have children. But Jason doesn't keep his word for a long time. And a little bit afterwards, he abandons her and he goes to the next woman.
Okay.
And she feels betrayed. So she serves him the kids for dinner. Now,
Okay.
of course, this is a horrific image of women. But Chaucer took the story and he stopped the story. He told it briefly, and he changed the ending. And the ending is when Jason abandons Medea. So, in fact, a person that is being perceived as the untrustworthy is in fact Jason, not Medea. So it's called The Legend of Good Women. This is a combination of stories. And I did a study of the use of rhetoric and the way Chaucer used rhetoric in order to convey his criticism against a medieval patriarchal, hierarchical society, um, and empower these women.
Okay, amazing. Uh, so I'd like
And
you to talk
actually turn them
more about,
women real in love. That's how we turn them. And somebody who's loyal in love, you cannot judge. I hope.
yeah.
Excuse
So
me.
I would
Yeah.
like you to talk more about the books that you have read and any specific books which you want to mention, which inspire you a lot, and you recommend people, other people like the audience, if they can read these books, and the authors also.
I think that Viktor Frankl's Man's Search of Meaning, I think that it is an important book. Um,
Books about life. Any particular book you want to mention about
I
life?
think that that's why I mentioned Man's Search of Meaning, because Viktor Frankl's, because it combines his life experience. It's not a theoretical book. I
Okay.
do think that it helps when you read theories because it gives you tools by which you can actually um, analyze text and look at them from a new perspective. Um, and so that one book that I think can brings up an um, important idea, the idea of meaning and purpose in life. Um, that's one book that I recommend, that I like. Um, I like Yuval Harari's books um, because he is a visionary. Um, Going back to Homo sapiens and others, the most recent one is 21 Questions for the 21st Century. I think that this is a book that invites people to think. So I would read that.
Any author? You have any favorite author like whom you really respect, admire, and love to read any book of his at any time, any point of time, in any situation?
I don't know if I have one. I have so many.
Yeah, if you can
I,
name few of them.
I just mentioned Viktor
Yeah.
Frankl. I just mentioned Yuval Harari.
Mhm.
Um, I like to read a variety of books from authors around the world. I can sit um, in Tuscany, in Italy, and read Paulo Coelho
Yeah.
because I think
Mhm.
that,
You have read all the books of Mr. Coelho?
excuse me, I read,
Yeah.
yes.
Have you read all the books? Okay.
Um, well, I think if you have a BA, an MA, PhD, and a few three postdocs, which I have three postdocs from Columbia University, NYU, Fordham University, all you do is reading. So I've read a lot. And not all the books that I read are directly related to um, English literature. The books that I read helped me look at, at English literature from a new perspective, from a different angle. Um, so Um, I like to read authors who are um, international.
Visionary.
Excuse me. If
Okay.
I like,
Authors who are visionary.
Um, also, also, but not only, also, also, it's true that Yuval Harari is in a way, he analyzes a lot of aspects of society. But Viktor Frankl was talking about purpose in life and the importance of purpose in life. Uh,
Right.
and
So,
Coelho is more like philosophy of life, and it's just a light book that I enjoy. Um, and I like to read a lot about history.
okay.
So here are
So,
three examples of
three
books.
recommendations. Okay. So, one last question, Dr. Aloni, which is very important for all of us, that you are into many things, but how Dr. Aloni keeps herself fit mentally and physically? What do you do? What is your rituals to stay
My
healthy,
rituals.
physically and mental both?
It's a good question. That is an important question. I'm actually curious what's yours after I tell you mine. Um, I mean what I say when I say to be able to see others, empathy. And I do it when I travel. I think, um, I think, I think when you can travel and see the world, you see things for yourself. Um, I don't know that I have a ritual, one ritual. One ritual, the only ritual that I have is read and read as much as you can, whenever you can. Um, what keeps me happy is the basic things that keep everybody else, I would assume, which is, I mean, it's not fair that I said that actually, but for me, because I cannot make, what keeps me happy is to be surrounded with people that I love and respect, to be surrounded with people that challenge me intellectually and ask me questions that make me think. um, my students and those that I train, and suddenly I mean, things that they write me in their thank you letters that make me so happy. If I mean, some of the thank you letters are just mind blowing. Um, uh, if I can change people's perspectives and help them change their lives, and that makes me so happy. So again, you asked me for a ritual. Um, I have a ritual that I'm trying to get rid of, which is eating sweets. I have a sweet tooth. Uh, no, but really the only ritual that I have is reading as much as I can, everything. That's one ritual. What makes me happy is the people around me, traveling, nature. I don't know that I can tell you I wake up in the morning and I meditate. No, but I do exercise. I think it's important. I do eat healthy, if that's your question. Uh, but I don't know that I have a ritual.
So, if not a professor, what would have been of other career choice for Dr. Aloni? If you were not a professor, what you
Sure.
wanted to different?
There are two things that I was thinking about, two or three things.
Mm.
Um, initially, I remember as a child, I said that I would be a judge. Uh, and actually, my brother is a lawyer, always says that it's a shame that I'm not a lawyer, and then I would have
Mm.
been a judge maybe.
Mm.
But I think I think that I'm doing it in a way with diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, where I'm looking for a way to create some to help have more equality, and not from a judgment perspective, but from creating a better environment in society. So one would be a judge. Can you guess the next?
Doctor.
No, no. I have many of my family who are doctors, and I would not have liked to be a doctor. No,
Maybe a writer, like an author.
but I am an author. I am a published author.
That's not your full time profession, right?
No, no. The other thing that I would have that I thought about, but I'm using it is psychology. But in fact, I'm using psychoanalytical theory in all of my articles. It is the framework that I use, whether Lacan, Jacques Lacan theory, which I like. By the way, you talk to me about what I like to read. I like to read Lacan's seminars. Again, it depends for what purpose. But if I'm reading leisurely while I'm on vacation, um, or I'm reading um, to be challenged. I have all kinds of books that I read. Um, so the other one would be psychology, um, because the human soul has always fascinated me, and still does. So psychology. And the third one, I think that business, interestingly enough, but that goes to family. And I would say DNA that I have from both
In
sides
the
of my
gene,
parents.
right?
Yes, there's a lot of that in the family too.
Right. So thank you so much once again, Dr. Aloni, for coming, and I really appreciate your effort and time. And I'm very happy that you have connected from Israel, because with Israel we have a great connection, relationship, India-Israel relationship, and
Well,
I
I'm
do.
just visiting here. I'm on break. I'm on vacation. I actually live in Miami. I'm just being, you catch me here, but I live most of the year Miami these days.
Miami, right?
I'm
But you
here
are
now.
from Israel, so I can.
I was born here, yes. And
Yeah.
yes, I did. I was born here. Yes.
Yeah, so it's great that we have connected, and thank you so much once again. And with your presence and with your the way you have described few things, you break down in a small things. I think it cleared many doubts for the audience also. Like when I asked you about teaching, you mentioned that the teacher has to be curious, needs to ask many questions. So these are my takeaways, which I will implement in my teaching. That you have to be curious, you have to ask many questions. Sometimes I have seen that asking too many questions, the learners gets irritated. I don't know why, because as a teacher you need to be curious, and so this is what
No,
I
but I'm not saying many. It's enough to ask one question. Any
okay.
research is based on questions. So it doesn't have to be many questions. It could be just one question.
Right. So also many other things about leadership. So you mentioned courage, you mentioned empathy, you mentioned lead by example. So these are very important and takeaways for me as well. So I wish you all the best, Dr. Aloni, for your future endeavors with Shatnez method.
Thank you. Thank
So
you. I am happy to, people can find me on LinkedIn if they need any help with English writing, or businesses that are looking for specialists in diversity, equity, and inclusion, or people who feel that they have some blockage in life and they want to have a breakthrough with a new perspective, which is the Shatnez method. It's been very successful. I have tons of letters of recognition and success stories that I can share. Um,
sure. And any message you would like to give to the audience who are watching this podcast, not only from India, maybe around the world, or maybe about the platform?
be curious, keep reading, try to see everything from multiple perspectives. Always look for a new perspective. And if you don't know how to do it by yourself, then reach out and find and locate people who can help you do it, because it can change your life. Actually, it can actually change your life.
Amazing, amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, and take care. See you once again. Maybe we'll meet again in future, and
Thank
maybe
you.
I
Have a
might.
nice Sunday.
Yes.
I said, have a nice Sunday. Enjoy your Sunday.
Yeah. Same to you. Same to you.
Thank you. Bye.
Take care.